I'm going live on Facebook right now. Hey folks, Bill Schaefer here on Facebook Live. Looking for teammates to sign in. See a couple signing in. Thank you very much. We're going to pause just a little bit, let a few more teammates sign in. And just so you know, I'm a very technical challenge kind of guy, and but however, I'm trying to do Periscope, Twitter Live, if you will. It's turned on. I have no idea how it's broadcasting. Hopefully, hey Paul, thank you. I have no idea how the Periscope thing is working, so hopefully I'll get some feedback from my Twitter teammates. If you take the time to tell some of your Twitter friends to sign in, thank you. And that's right, Steve, we are going to win. Please do that, but tell them that I will not be following questions via Twitter. I'm not smart enough to follow 2 accounts. I'm challenged right here with Facebook, talking to all my friends here in Iowa District 3, about this race. If any of you have the ability to let me know if Periscope is actually working, that would be cool too. But don't worry about it. My daughter is monitoring that, and she'll let me know if we're succeeding in that endeavor or not. I've got a couple of thanks, Paul. I've got a couple of ideas of things I want to talk about. Some of it is a follow-up from Friday night, the last Facebook Live that we did. You'll notice I do have some notes in my hand. That's called props. That lets me get over the potential nervousness. Although y'all have already done that just by signing in Friday. All the feedback that I got. Some wonderful direct message or private message conversations on Facebook, a couple of phone calls. So I'm going to go ahead and start right now and give you my phone number, 515-850-8100. And you are welcome to call me anytime except for when I'm Facebook Live, I suppose. And I will put it out again at the end. Hopefully my daughter will remember to remind me not to forget that I said I'd put it out again, just to make sure you all have it. I got a phone call yesterday from a great American veteran that's an Iowan that lives in West Des Moines, and he pointed out that my phone number being out there for folks really impressed him, and that's what caused him to want to research me. And then he researched me, and he looked at my pro-life stance, and he looked at my veteran stance, of course, and saw my background, so that got him interested. He gave me a call. We had a great conversation yesterday and today, and I really appreciate him reaching out. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for dialing in. So I've kind of stalled a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get started now, and here's the follow-up from Friday night. As I don't listen, teammate. My picture is jumping around. I don't know what's happening to you. I hope yours isn't. Hopefully I don't get disconnected here. Let's drive on. So Friday night, as we were talking, I got a couple of phone calls and a couple of direct messages that asked me. They said, "Hey, Travis. Hey, tell me more about yourself. We want to know more about you." I really don't. I don't enjoy talking about myself that much. And thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Rick. Y'all are helping a lot because my picture is jumping back and forth. But let me do this. I will answer any of your questions. If you have a question about my background, if you have a question about my family, please put it up. I will answer it. My bio is on the website, my full bio. You can always DM me. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I like being asked questions much more. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you signing in. So my summary would go like this. Listen, I'm a career soldier. I grew up in the Army. My father's a career soldier. He served. He and my mom grew up in New York. they served in the Army for about 23 years. My dad's last tour was Maryland. He and my mom are still in Maryland with my little brother and my sister. My other brother is in Oklahoma. I met my wife in Maryland. We've been married for 36 years. We have 3 adult children, and they are spread out. One's in Atlanta, one's in Tucson, Arizona, and one is actually here with me right now. She's in the background there. She's going to keep me straight like she always does. She's a teacher from Texas, and she's up here right now helping me with the campaign. We'll probably return to Texas sometime this summer to resume teaching, which is her first love. I really appreciate my family's support. Aberdeen, Maryland. My parents actually live in Port Deposit now, but when I was in Maryland, I lived in Aberdeen, and that's where I met Robin. So my military career, I enlisted in what year was that? 81, in the reserves. I spent 3 years in the reserves out of Gettysburg in the infantry, and then I went on active duty in the infantry and spent 30 years on active duty, retired as a colonel. I've served in command billets up through brigade level. And so what that means to you that aren't familiar with the Army is, as a commander of a company in Desert Storm, I had about 150 soldiers that I led into combat. As a commander of a battalion in Iraqi Freedom, I commanded about 1,000 soldiers into combat with small operations where I had over 2,500 soldiers working for me for a couple of weeks at a time. Then I commanded in a training brigade about 1,500 soldiers with responsibility for training National Guard and reservists that were getting ready to deploy, and at any given time having several thousand of them under my responsibility for training. I've also worked in the Pentagon at senior levels, senior staff levels in the Joint Staff, solving problems and providing training associated problem solving for the entire Department of Defense. Hi, Bill. And I was also a chief of staff at the 3-star level. So that's a very short summary of my background. I'm very proud of my military career. I'm an Army master parachutist, ranger, infantry guy, and I will answer any more questions that you might have on that. The other thing that came up Friday night, or came up after the Friday night discussion, that I would like to talk about is, there's really a couple of topics. I think the first one is term limits. Some folks commented on term limits in support of it, but asked me, why are you so staunch on term limits? And I got to tell you, there's a couple of reasons for it. I started out and will always be for term limits, just for the primary observation that our country was built on self-reliance. It was built on people serving each other at the local level. And then when we created this human experiment called the Federal Republic, called the America, initially the folks, our founders, our first president, and many congressmen and senators since then have always served with a servant attitude. They always had another life, and were successful in that, and then returned to that. And I just think that's important. I do not believe that career politicians is the right way to go for a country. I don't believe in career politics. So that's the main reason. As I have moved through this adventure, attempting to be your representative, trying to earn your vote in the primary, and I emphasize that, what I've learned is that the party that I'm very loyal to and have been my entire adult life, a registered Republican, recognizing it's a two-party system, and the Republican Party of the two parties is clearly the best in terms of pushing smaller government and conservative values. But at this point, I got to tell you, I believe that the party is more interested in the power of the party and the control of politicians. Well, listen, if you want a politician that can be controlled, then you probably should look at my opponent. I will be controlled by you, you the people, a spinoff of we the people. You, the people of Iowa District 3, will tell me what the agenda ought to be. You'll convince me where my changes ought to take place. The party will not. And I say that with emphasis, and I feel bad pushing back on my party, but the party is ignoring the primary. The party is not taking the time to tell you and your neighbors that there is a primary. Whether they think the politician is a better candidate or not is fine, but they owe it to you. Every one of your central committees owes it to you. Everyone working in the party in any way, shape, or form owes it to you. Every one of you, every one of the 176,000 registered Republicans, the registered independents, and frankly, even the Democrats, owes it to you to tell you who the candidates are, all of the candidates in the primary, and ask you what I'm asking you. Study the candidates. Listen, I want you to pick me. I said last week, and I'll say it again, I don't have an interest in politics. I don't have an interest in living in DC again, but I'm willing to do it, just like I was willing to go to combat. And you need to study the candidates, and you, the people, we, the people of Iowa District 3, need to choose the right nomination, the right nominee to represent us in the general election this fall. We need to make that selection, not the party. Okay, absolutely. Political service should be an honor. And if you all give me the opportunity, I guarantee you, it'll not only be an honor to me, but I will demonstrate that every day as I walk the walk of what I have told you in my run for this office and as I execute. It's not lost on me. I'm sorry, I'm getting off of term limits, but it's not lost on me, having led soldiers, that no matter what I tell you, in the end, you, just as all my soldiers did, will evaluate me on my actual execution. Give me the chance, give me the opportunity to provide leadership in Washington, not be your leader. I'm not your leader, I'm your representative. But I will deliver leadership and I will deliver constitutional problem solving on your behalf in Washington, D.C., and push this country back and could push this country back toward the federal republic it's supposed to be, with a, hi Whitney, with a emphasis on states' rights, on individual responsibilities, and get the federal government out of our daily lives as much as we possibly can. So yes, I absolutely think term limits are important, and I'm going to look at my notes real quick to make sure I didn't miss something I wanted to tell you. Yeah. Oh God, I looked at my notes. Hey, listen, teammates, one of the other big reasons, besides politics shouldn't be a career, is it's also very clear to me that our politicians get elected and they quickly become focused on the next election. That becomes more important to them than delivering on your behalf. First, I promise you that won't happen with me. Second, the idea that it's just too hard to get term limits across, and you got lobbyists and you got all these other bureaucratic issues that folks want to argue that weaken the idea that term limits would strengthen the nation and we need politicians with experience. Listen, this country is too smart. Each and every one of you is too capable to not believe that we can write term limits that would mitigate, neutralize all those concerns, from bureaucrats to lobbyists to all the other things that causes a distaste for each of us on politics. So we can absolutely get it done, and we will get it done. Yeah, Sandy, listen, that's a great question. If you all have been following me, you absolutely know that I'm a term limits guy. I'm not a term limits guy. I'm a build the wall guy. I will talk to that for a second, because that was also a question I got asked. Hi, Bill, on Friday night, that what's your view on the folks always ask me what my view is on immigration. Well, let me tell you, and I'll put a video out on this this week before the Friday night session. Sorry, I'm going to look at. Yeah, absolutely, Rick. A follow-up or just kind of a follow statement on term limits. Politicians or folks get elected to office that become politicians, and they spend so much time in D.C. They really are no longer one of the people. That's another reason to support term limits. I got to take a note here because there's something I want to talk about, and that's endorsements. So I was talking about the border wall based on a question I got tonight, just a moment ago from Sandy. And let me say this. First of all, I would ask each of you to join me in no longer, spot on, Paul. John, thank you. I'm honored that you have signed in. Okay, I got to stop reading the questions because I want to get to this border wall thing. Forgive me, folks. First of all, join me in no longer talking about the southern border problem as an immigration problem. It is not immigration. I am pro-immigration. Like all of you, I have immigration throughout my family. You have immigration in your family, no doubt. Yeah, drain the swamp. I love it. It's not about legal immigration. Legal immigration is a federal responsibility. We should demand that our federal representatives write immigration law, update the immigration law to reflect current needs, and expect that the federal government would forecast our annual needs and then develop the metrics associated with who comes in the country. Metrics don't require people to be rich. They require them to be self-sustaining, that they don't go on the public dole. They require that they have a skill set that the country is in need of. It could be doctors, but it could be plumbers. It doesn't matter what the skill set is. Our federal government should be able to forecast future requirements on a several year out basis, set the standards, and then start the immigration process to bring those folks in, with one of the primary things being a little bit repetitive is not going on the public dole. Oh, I was told the other night I had to smile too. So let me smile a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. I'm working on it. Now, the southern border, that's not an immigration problem. That's a national security issue, another federal level responsibility. It is a national security issue. The federal government has a responsibility to secure our borders and make sure our nation stays sovereign. In order to do that, we absolutely need the wall. Paul, I'll get back to that. But I think the answer is no. So we absolutely need the wall. But equally important to the wall and resourcing our border patrol, equally important to those is eliminating incentives. The incentives from welfare, whether welfare comes in the form of food, education, or medical, has to be eliminated. You can't walk across the border as an illegal entrant and get into the welfare system, regardless of what that system is. And that includes jobs. And therefore, we also need to help our employers know whether or not they're hiring an illegal or not. And when they hire illegals, they need to be held accountable. It's not acceptable for folks to be able to hire illegals and then the illegal gets deported and there's no repercussions for the business owner. Not acceptable. Illegal entrants are bad for the country and bad for the economy. And the idea that Americans won't do the work is an argument that we need to defeat. Now, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of effort. But as I've said many times, I'm not afraid of the hard work, and we'll get after the requirements that are necessary to secure our border. Just to add on to that, by the way, I don't believe in birthright citizenship. The idea that you can come here as a citizen from another country and give birth, and that child is automatically an American citizen. That just doesn't make sense. So I'll be fighting against that as well. And my last comment on the border is this. We should have land ports of entry that are just as secure as our airports of entry and our seaports of entry. Doesn't mean we don't need to secure those a little bit better, but our airports and our seaports of entry are certainly in a little better shape than our land ports of entry, and we need to fix that. And that helps promote the legal immigration. Now, Paul just asked me if we have term limits, if we have an engaged populace in the election process, and I think the answer to that's no. Until the party helps deliver a fair and equal primary process, encouraging the electorate to be active in the primary voting process and giving fair access to the candidates and requiring all of those volunteers and paid folks that work for the party to actually be neutral, not say they're neutral, to actually provide the information. Thanks, start all the watch parties you want, that'd be great. To provide all the information required to tell every registered voter, and I would argue every registered independent voter, an opportunity to influence the election in the primary, then no, the term limits is still the better answer. Even when that happens, and I expect it'll happen because we're going to push for it, I'm still not a fan of career politicians. Okay, sorry, I got to move my materials here so I can see what's going on. Man, I'm getting lots of questions. This is love. Y'all are firing me up. Life is good tonight. This one up here, national security immigrations, I absolutely concur with that. And I'll look at that note later on re-election rates. Re-election rates, I believe, that note is going to tell me 80+%, and that just tells you the power of the system. But you know, a re-election for an incumbent, I'm going to tell you this: a re-election for an incumbent, being a higher percentage, doesn't bother them so much. But here's where our party bothers me right now, and this is a little bit personal, but you know, endorsements. My Republican opponent, my challenger for the Republican nomination here, starting now and running through June 2nd, is being treated by the party as if he's an incumbent. He's not. He lost the seat 2 years ago. He lost the seat because of his inaction and his lack of support for the America First agenda. He's got a lot of endorsements from Iowa Republican politics. He put out a note, 34 endorsements from state representatives and state senators. Well, that's their right to endorse him, but none of those individuals have reached out to me. I've talked to 3 of them that I can think of that I reached out to them, but none of them have actually talked to me about backing the non-establishment candidate. And the primary metrics they use are, of course, the political metrics of money and political endorsement. Well, again, that's fine, but that's up to you, the Iowans of District 3. If those endorsements impress you and makes you want to go with the politician, that's your choice. If not, take a very close look at my campaign again, and then spend part of your day talking to your friends and family, them to talk to their friends and additional family members, and show the establishment and show the party that they can't control the outcome of a primary election. Only you can. I would ask you, you know, I wasn't going to emphasize this, but I'm going to all to note a couple of things. If you've seen me at gun shows, if you've seen me out at pizza ranches, if you've seen me anywhere, there's 3 things I would like you to know. I have never asked you for money. There are very few posts where you've seen me post, don't or not, donate if you can. There is a donate button on my website, but I have not asked you for donations, and I haven't asked a single one of you for your vote. I want you to vote for me. What I've asked you to do is study the candidate, pick your candidate, and then, in addition to that, spend time talking to your friends and family about who the right candidate ought to be. So no, Paul, I don't think even an engaged populace is going to deliver us the statesmanship service that we deserve. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. Okay, got a watch party starting. I'm going back to this. Now, Paul, I'm ready to talk politics and bringing politics to the forefront. Okay, another question I got asked on Friday night was on the amendment. I just got asked it again, so let me jump on that. Listen, again, when I tell you something, it's coming from the heart. The Constitution, the entire Constitution, the Constitution that I swore to defend against all enemies, for one of the best for 32 years of my life. That oath hasn't been rescinded. I still carry that oath, and I will carry that oath into office. So the entire Constitution means I can't pick and choose what I do and don't support. I can't pick and choose, where there's negotiable ideas because it makes somebody feel good. First, on our Second Amendment, let's separate the issue that people claim, politicians, media folks, all the elitists in our country claim that they want to solve, which is murder by a gun. I mean, that's irrelevant. Murder is evil. We already know that. We have laws that make murder illegal. Banning a tool does not solve evil, and it will not solve murder. Set that aside, and much more importantly, most Republicans are going to say something similar to what I just said. Some Republicans are going to tell you that they support the Second Amendment, and then they're going to sponsor red flag laws, or they're otherwise going to discuss negotiable topics where we could make it harder for legal law-abiding citizens to get guns, having no impact on solving the problem of evil, but making it very irritating and very tiring for those of us that follow laws to buy the weapons that we want. You hear all the arguments. Well, you don't really need this. Well, you don't need that for hunting. Well, why does somebody need that? And then you hear the defenses. Well, I want to defend myself. I want to go hunting. Listen, let me make it clear to you. It is nobody's business in this country why you want to own a firearm. Doesn't matter if you want to hunt. Doesn't matter if you want to target shoot. Doesn't matter if you want to be providing for the self-defense of your family. Your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what it says. It's a non-negotiable standard. And red flag laws violate at least 5 of our first 10 amendments. Absolutely unacceptable, and equally do not solve the problem they purport to solve. So when you elect a representative and he says he supports the Second Amendment, when he goes to Washington on your behalf, he should support the Second Amendment and not negotiate. And it doesn't matter what excuses they have. They can say that the NRA helped them write it. I don't care. They can say they were asked to write it by others that they see in leadership positions. I don't care. Who asks me to write a red flag law? My answer will be no. It violates your constitutional rights, and it does solve the problem. If you want to talk to me about solving the problem of evil, I'm all in on helping solve the problem or holding accountable those people who deliver evil upon their neighbors. But I'm not going to negotiate on the ownership of firearms and your right to own them, and that includes ammunition, etc. All these ways around making it harder for law-abiding citizens to get their to get their firearms or transfer their firearms to family members, etc. Hi, Ken. Yeah, Rick, you're right. Incumbents have money. Again, an opportunity for me to talk to you about honesty and the truthfulness. When you put on your website that you're a grassroots campaign, and yet your entire staff is paid, and money is, you know, 1 point something million of DC and backed money, of which the party has delivered zero help to me in terms of dollars or any other way. You're not really a grassroots campaign. Forgive me for whatever I said that I'm repeating now, but you want to see grassroots? You see my daughter sitting across the table from me, managing my stuff tonight, managing my very inexpensive tools I'm using to make this video work. You see my wife out painting yard signs. You see my volunteers, Iowans like you that have volunteered to help me in this campaign, driving around the counties. One farrier that every day goes out and does his job, and while he's doing his job talks about the campaign, about information, and puts up yard signs. And I can't thank you enough. I doubt you're on because you're probably working right now, but all of you should know and thank Marvin for the assistance that he's given us, and many others. My best friend Steve, being my campaign manager, his entire family, teenage daughters, get on. They've done texting. They've worked gun shows, and as we have gone along, we have at least 1 or 2 volunteers or more in every county that make phone calls, talk to their friends. That's grassroots campaigning. That's campaigning on a shoestring budget with great Americans that you're trying to represent, not trying to get in the seat because you have influence from the political class. Yeah, Sandy, you're absolutely right. David Young co-sponsored H6747, which is a red flag law, and he doesn't tell the truth about it. He says that he supports the Second Amendment, but he doesn't tell anybody about what's in that particular red flag law. And I was working on it a moment ago. Sandy's causing me to be blunt. It doesn't work for Iowans. It doesn't work for the United States of America. It is not acceptable. Check that out for yourself and tell me if you don't agree. Kay, I do not know. I've reached out to the RNC. I've reached out to the Republican Party of Iowa. Initially, they spoke. The Republican Party of Iowa had a couple of conversations with me last summer. They've ignored me since then. One of them has spoken in favor of my opponent, even though he claimed that he was supposed to be neutral. I don't know the answer to that. They, in my view, I'm still a loyal Republican, but my party doesn't care to deliver a fair primary. They just want to do the candidate's going to be, and you to come get out the vote in November for the general election. Well, I'm going to ask you again, study the candidates. I want you to pick me. I'm ready to serve you in this nation again. But if you choose not to, that's fine. That's the point. Get out the vote. Get your neighbors and your friends out the vote. Get out the vote in the primary and deliver the right nominee for Iowa District 3. Bruce, I absolutely don't believe that sanctuary for illegal entrance is legal. And sanctuary cities that are harboring illegal aliens in this country, whether they've broken another law or not, is irrelevant. Sanctuary for illegal entrance should be illegal, and the At the federal level, there needs to be a solution, and personally, I support the withholding of other federal funds in order to get compliance with our immigration laws and the control of illegal entrance. But thanks for that question. Absolutely, Bill. It's a national security issue. Yeah, Henry, thanks for that question. It brings you back to the Second Amendment, and I will go back for a moment. If you read the Constitution, there's actually a piece in there that talks about how our states are supposed to provide, reciprocal respect to their own rules. In that being said, just our Constitution ought to be enough to say that I have the right to carry in every state in the Union. And, as a soldier who has a gun collection, both 100-year-old guns that have been handed to by my family and newer weapons that I bought because I enjoy shooting, I've transferred those guns throughout my career and always have been concerned about which state, I was in violation of local rules, and it shouldn't have been any. But the answer to your question is, Henry, I absolutely believe that federal concealed carry law, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need a concealed carry license. We would be able to refer to our Constitution. That's the first thing that I think is right. Knowing how difficult that would be, I would absolutely support a federal concealed carry cause all the states to reciprocate on each other's concealed carry laws. It's the only topic, I know, again, speaking of my daughter's teaching certificate, she has a challenge in that from one state to another. I'm not sure that's right. But reciprocity for our right to carry arms should be the fact. Now, listen, I got to tell you that private property owners also have the right to have their opinion. And so if your neighbor says you can't carry a weapon onto their land, you need to respect that. That is their right. And that would include the local restaurant. I do not believe the federal or state government should tell you whether or not you can carry your weapon in public. But folks have a right to private property as well. John, I'd love to talk to you, private message. If you want to help with the campaign, the first thing is just talk to your friends and neighbor. The second thing is we'll talk private message afterwards and see what else you're willing and capable of doing. With these rules under code that I don't agree with, but I respect everybody else to agree with them. We can't go door to door right now. We can't go to the campsites. We can't do a lot of things that were part of our but we have a lot of handouts. Then the people that I can get those handouts to that are willing to hand them to additional people, the more helpful it would be. Sandy, I'm missing, so I'm going to say sorry to you.
She was apologizing for making you call out young.
For what?
Making you call out young.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, Paul, I agree. I want the involvement. I think that's a solution to the long-term politics of politics. Political involvement is the way, even if it's only a couple of minutes a week or whatever, the more of us get involved, the more our opportunity will be to course correct our country back to the federal republic it's supposed to be and get the government out of our daily lives the best we can. So I'm in spot on agreement with you on that. Yeah, I don't know which pack it is, but listen, so it was mentioned to me that Young was backed by a Main Street PAC. I don't know which PAC that is. that supports pro-red flag. I wouldn't surprise me because he does. Now listen, if you want me to list endorsements, I don't have any political endorsements. I have a half a dozen general officers from both the National Guard and the United States that I worked with. I've got a group called the Combat Veterans Combat Veterans for Congress that has backed me, and the co-chair of families is backing me right now, as well as, more importantly to me, many of you. I don't know if we can prosecute city leaders if we hold for holding back for sanctuary cities, but if we hold back funds, it's going to cause them challenges with running their cities. Listen, Rick, if you own a business, even though it's private property, and you choose to tell your patrons that they can't bring a defense weapon with them on your property, then I would have to agree with you. I think that you now have increased your level of responsibility to some degree. So that would have to be thought through for how we potentially hold them accountable for that. If I was a business owner, I wouldn't have that policy. Matter of fact, I saw some funny memes, whatever you call them, humorous things on Facebook about COVID. Just put up the no COVID sign, like the no pistol sign, or the no concealed carry sign, because that'll protect you from everybody, right? The idea that you have yourself by putting up a no guns allowed sign is really pretty. You like my 6 gun on the shelf? I was hoping somebody would notice it. That is an 1881 Colt. Yeah, let me bring that sucker forward. Again, something handed down to me by my uncle, carried in our family for quite a while. It's an 1881 Colt single action Army 45. There you have it. You like that, Keith? Well, if that thing falls, I'm not gonna be happy. That's funny stuff. Okay. Another question I got asked Friday night was about vaccines. Am I pro or against vaccines? And so here's that. I studied on it hard. I had thought about being for. I'll talk the national budget here in a second. I'd never thought about being for or against vaccines before. I don't have any negative experiences with vaccines, but I was provided some very emotional testimony from friends via private message about personal issues with vaccines and how it impacts children. My experience with vaccines is mostly positive. I've received lots of vaccines to travel around the world to not very pretty and not very clean places. Those vaccines apparently have protected me pretty well. My kids have all had their vaccines. Of course, my kids are adults, and what I understand is the mandatory vaccines went from 20-ish requirement in the 80s to 70-something now. And so as I evaluate where would be my first public announcement on vaccines, I had to go back to my constitutional-based federal republic point of view about the government being involved in your life and directing you to do things. I do not think the federal government should be, or the state government should be in the business of directing you to do things, from my insurance to protect yourself. I think the federal government in the promotion of science has a role in analyzing the validity of vaccines and putting out information, both the good and the bad. And that was one of the points made on Facebook the other night. The availability of the risks needs to be as prevalent as the availability of the positive aspects of vaccines. But in a blunt statement, I am against government-mandated vaccines and will remain so. I would encourage folks to look closely at the benefits of vaccines and protect their family accordingly. But I do not believe yes, I absolutely agree, Paul. And that's why again, being honest with you, up until the last couple of weeks, I've been asked about vaccines about 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I had never thought about vaccines as a something I needed to take a stance on, like I had on the Second Amendment, I had on pro-life. And so I've done a little bit of research. I've talked to a couple of doctors who of course will argue, rightfully so, about the validity of where vaccines have done good in the country, and they're absolutely spot on. But here's the thing: a person with a vaccine does not really put at risk a person with a vaccine to any amount. And so why do you feel like we should tell our neighbors what to do in that regard? It is a freedom issue, and I absolutely believe that you should be able to choose it or not get vaccinated on your own. And the federal government's job is to provide you information so that you can make a logical and honest choice for your family on vaccines. So there you have it on vaccines. Thank you, Dylan. A little pause on questions, although I'm sure I missed some, and I apologize for any that I missed. And so I want to, repeat again. Please take a look at the candidates. Please talk to your friends and neighbors. Please encourage folks out to vote in this primary season. Our Secretary of State has sent out the request for ballots and has offered the opportunity to vote by mail to all of us. I prefer voting in person. I can't say that I'm against voting by mail. I spent most of my life, I spent my entire life depending on mail-in votes so I could get my vote heard at the presidential level, soldier. And I don't think that being against mail-in votes because of the potential fraud is a strong argument, because we should be able to use for any system that we use. But we need to out the vote in the primary, whether it's by mail or by preferred voting in person. We need to be influencing now our friends and neighbors who might be voting, might their votes by mail. Rick, I'm not sure if I'm following. I think my stance on Department of Education is constitutionally based. The Department of Education at the federal level, if it exists, should only be in a position to provide guidance. And so your point about standards, and let me go back here and make sure I'm reading it correctly. Standards for students across states lines. I have no problem with any level of guidance coming out of the government on educational standards, whether it's skill sets that we need, again, a forecasting kind of position, but the federal government should not be able to put out directive standards to any of the states. I believe that education belongs to parents, and we are the customers, and whether it is a state-funded school or a private school, they ought to be delivering and educational product to their customers, students and parents. Henry, I hope I answered enough on the Department of Education. My position would be it should have never got developed, but it's there. And again, now I can, studying on it, I could see a role in guidance, coming out of the federal government, but directives. Certainly not the redistribution of money associated with education. I think federal money at the college level is one of the things that's reducing the effectiveness of college level education. But certainly they shouldn't be able to put out directives for what the curriculum ought to be or what the standards ought to be. No, I'm not a fan of that. States can handle it. Yeah, I agree, Paul. I absolutely agree. Take time to go vote in person. That's the right thing to do. It's not just soldiers that have the reason to vote, by mail. And dismiss that method of delivering the right to vote to folks who really can't get out. And again, while I don't agree with a lot of the things going on with this COVID-19 thing, I agree with the right of every individual to react the way they think is right. And that includes if they're concerned, certainly if you're in the at-risk population, a little bit older, maybe you have a immunization issue or a lung issue, and you choose to vote by mail, I can understand it. So I think we should support that, and we should expect that our secretary eliminates fraud to the best that they possibly can. Yeah, that's right. That's Andy. Thank you very much. That's the message that I'm trying to generate. The executive branch, by the way, and I'm a big fan of our current president. I'm a fan of America First agenda. But that being said, I am not a fan of executive orders. I'm not a fan of the executive branch being able to direct, mandate anything that isn't carried through the Congress. Our representatives, senators and congressmen, the representatives, be forced to take a position topic before the executive branch can say, we're going to have to do this. It doesn't matter which branch you talk about. I feel that way about all of them. The EPA, the Department of Education, you pick a branch, they should not be able to mandate, they should not be able to fine, tax, or otherwise cause American citizens to give up money to the federal government that wasn't taken through our Congress and codified by our representatives. Yeah, Sandy, I mean, I agree. I agree. And, I mean, which branches of, or which parts of the administration, the executive branch, are unconstitutional? I guess that's something I need to go down each one of them and study one by one to make sure that I give the right constitutional answer. I know off the top of my head clearly the Department of Defense, the Department of State, Department of Transportation, because of interstate responsibilities. But we have grown from, I think it was 6 to somewhere about 25 executive branch pieces of the administration, and it's too much. And when I almost, that reminds me, get back to the budget. Somebody asked me the budget question earlier, and how do you get to the balanced budget? The folks don't want me to talk about balanced budget. It's too hard. You can't do this. You can't do that. I don't find it hard. Again, forgive me for this again and again, but I've done hard. This isn't hard. It's just staff work. You need to get folks together. You need a small coalition and agreement, and then work them to get more and more on board. And the logic, the clear logic of a balanced budget that would allow you to address the deficit. The debt. An annual balanced budget requires us to prioritize spending according to the Constitution, and then fund some things fully, eliminate fraud and waste and abuse, but some things should get funded fully, like the Department of Defense, and then everything else gets funded according to the predictive analysis ability to determine by forecasting methods how much revenues are going to be brought in. You know we can do it. They do it anyway. That's how the budgets kind of get started. The budget process gets started, and then some things just shouldn't be funded. And you got whether or not it's constitutionally start, and then whether or not we should fund it is the second piece. It's absolutely doable, and then the hard conversation has to get had. We don't have enough money. This. We can fund these other two things a lesser amount and fund the third thing, or not fund the third thing. Absolutely doable. Our representatives owe us that, and I will deliver that for you. Ken, I absolutely agree and would fully support. Actually, I would fully support two things on the federal ballot: term limits. We, the people, ought to set that pay. They should not be able to. Now, to be fair, they can't set it for themselves. They can only set it for the next Congress. But when they get reelected at an 80-90%, it doesn't help that they can set their own pay. I do not think they should be able to do that. And Paul, in a nutshell, that's what I was saying. That you heard me say this before, many of you, by the way. This is on the education controlled closer to home, the curriculum decided by parents, and the business. The business is education. Whether it's a state school or a paid-for college, it's still a business. It should be catering to the client or to the customer, and that is the student and the parents that are either paying for it through their taxes, paying through the bill to the college, or otherwise, owning the responsibility of their child. That's the customer, and that's who it should be. And to emphasize that, again, you've heard me say before, as you solve problems at senior levels, the lower you solve the problems, the lower they stay solved. And this is right into that category. You can't solve problems, especially on education, not especially, but education, like a lot of topics, you can't solve those problems at the federal level with any degree of success, because you enter into fraud, you enter into abuse, you enter into the siphoning off of the monies that are being redistributed. You enter the control of the elitists that are in Washington that think they're smarter than the parents. Frankly, I don't care if they're smarter than you. It's your responsibility, and I want to help deliver it back to you. Propping up the Postal Service. Not necessarily. I don't think the constitutional requirement of the Congress to the posts requires it to run a postal office. So setting the standards for how mailing addresses and mail boxes and boxes get worked is one thing. Running that business is another. And so, no, I'm absolutely propping up a postal service. I think we could privatize that and still receive the guidance out of the Congress on, how we organize the delivery of our mail. Well, Ken, if the Congress had term limits, their full requirement wouldn't be all that lucrative. So you kind of solve the at the same time, because they would be on 5 or 6 year federal retirement, which, a couple $100 a month. So that would solve that problem. Hey, Bill, that's a new question for me. Limiting construction of an aircraft based on casualties in one place, and I guess my gut reaction, I'll have to think about it more, would be no. I don't favor limiting anything with the Department of Defense, with the military. The number of aircraft carriers, the number of Navy ships, the number of Air Force fighters and bombers and fuelers, and the number of infantry combat men and vehicles, all that should be based on an analysis of the world threat and some assumptions on how much we need, based on national security objectives. And once that is in place, then we should deliver to the Department of Defense the amount of military combat capability that they need. You make a good point about putting so much in one place and the potential threat for that. But the way to fix that is mitigating it through the defense capabilities that the ship has, and then the rest of the fleet's ability to defend itself through the air and on the ocean. So we'll think more about that. Yeah, listen, I've been asked the tax question a couple times. There's an organization out there that wants me to sign a pledge to a fair tax, and the only reason I can't sign that is because they have very specifics about what they want me to say that I will support, and I don't know what the answer to that is. The answer to you, Henry, is absolutely. We need a tax system. Whether it's a flat consumption tax is debatable. That's a negotiable. Again, the point I told you many times, there are some things to me that are not. How we tax is negotiable, whether it's a flat tax or a consumption tax. I'm not sure the exact answer, but I do know this: everybody needs to be taxed. If we deliver personal income to the federal government, everybody needs to do so. And frankly, that's even if you're getting a welfare. You need to see it coming out. You need to take ownership in our country, and you can do that if you're receiving and not participating in the cost of the federal system that are all willing to accept, that we the people are willing to accept. So more discussion to be had as I move into this seat on whether or not we push for flat tax or consumption tax or some other form of fair tax that makes sure that everybody is feeling the investment in the country and not in a position where they just want to vote for the next politician who's going to promise them they don't have to pay any. School vouchers is an answer. It's one of several answers. Lenny, thanks for pointing that out. That would help. Frankly, it even goes back to vaccines. If our government is going to require vaccines, then that family ought to be able to get, the family that doesn't want to get vaccines, if they're going to require vaccines to go to school, then a family that doesn't want to get vaccines first should be allowed to go to school. But if they're not, then they should be allowed to be exempt from paying the school tax, and they can go find a private school or whatever it takes to get their education done. Yeah, Rick, I agree. That's got to change. The postal thing. I wasn't prepared to talk postal tax. David, joining me, brother. It's always good to hear from you. And yeah, you have a good point. I've got to do more analysis. I got to hear more from the folks in Iowa District 3 to see what their best plan is on. And another friend is pointing out that consumption could be cheated easily. So we got to work through all that. But a fair tax, a tax that is distributed evenly to all of us, is the right answer. Man, This is good stuff. And whoever asked me to smile, and I see I do smile. I am a happy guy. I got 3 beautiful children, a wonderful dog. Life is good. And if you all let me get serve you in the Congress, I probably won't smile a lot while I'm in D.C. Let me see if I had another note here. Pro-life. Well, folks, I added my video on pro-life. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope most of you watched it to my note. We'll be live again. Reminder on Tuesday. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate Whitney because she's poked at me about it before. So, so listen, absolutely pro-life, 100% pro-life, no equivocation on it. What you'll hear in my video is passion for which I both the mother and the child. Mothers, regardless of the circumstances of how they got pregnant, but certainly mothers who have been victims of trauma deserve our care. They deserve our care for their mental and their physical health, while we equally care for the health of that preborn child. And in the end, when that child is born, we make sure that that woman is still whole in her life. And if she is unable to care for that child for any reason, and I am a self-sufficient, don't welfare guy. But this is a case where we, the people, want to fix the evil of this country that supports abortion. We need to have an outlet, meaning a good and healthy choice for where that now born child can live its life with success, with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, even if it's not with its biological. So we've got to do both. We can do both. Those of us in the pro-life movement need to show concern for both mother and child at every turn. Yeah, I think I agree with you, buddy. But folks debate the other forms of a fair tax, and I'm willing to have that debate. But flat tax and balanced budget, I believe, would solve a lot of problems, and that's my starting point. That's my starting point of the debate. Whereas my boss used to say my going in position is going to be flex and balanced budget. And they are, I believe, very connected. Okay, folks, I'm running out of notes here. I can make up something else. I'm sure I missed a question. Again, I apologize for that. I went back through every comment the other night, and wow, it was very rewarding. You all really feel good about what I'm trying to do. I got enough comments about this event that I think potentially anyway, a 5:15 and then a 6:30 on another day. Right now, Friday is a good idea. Yeah, Ken, I think that's possible. You have a lot of ideas about our veterans. Increasing pay isn't on my top of my list. Ken's pointing out the idea that maybe why have our soldiers pay federal taxes on their income? And I got to tell you, heard what I said earlier about even somebody on paying taxes so they can come out of their problem, come out of their pay, gives them ownership. And I think soldiers have to fall into that same category, in my view. Every one of us needs to have that investment in the country if we're going to have a federal level personal income tax. But my priority for veterans is going to start with the issues associated with folks that are in their last year of service, specifically, that year before they're supposed to retire, and helping them move into retirement And then, of course, you get into veterans, healthcare issues, veterans, veteran issues that are going to be a top priority to me. But I think the country has done a wonderful job in the last 20 years or so of increasing military pay to be relatively competitive, not perfect, but relatively competitive. So, we'll keep thinking about that. Hey, Rick, I don't disagree with you that local property taxes is a big problem, and those, again, I'm asking to be your federal level representative. I don't get out in how the state gets run. Let me say that differently. I don't get an increased vote in a state run in how the state is run. Because I'm the federal representative, I might have access to the governor if she'll answer a phone call. I might have access. I might have easier access to our state representatives, our state senators, and so I can talk to them, encourage them. But I will be doing that as a federal representative. I'm not in charge of the state. I don't have authority over a state or state senators or state representatives. I only have potentially access. And so what you're talking about is a state issue. I would discuss it with you and be willing to join you and our state representatives on all those topics. It's not the federal level job to fix state level issues. Wow, I just got a notice that a great major general that I work with has signed in to listen to me ramble tonight, and I'm very honored. And Sarah, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you signing in to hear your old protege ramble and talk to his teammates here in Iowa about what his intentions are to serve them and to serve our nation once again. So, friends, there's several soldiers. I don't disagree with that, Paul. Several soldiers from my past have signed in to listen to me tonight. From all kinds of, it's just what an honor. I got, of course, my campaign manager, former soldier, and a non-commissioned officer, and I've got a civilian signed in. Anyway, thanks for letting me acknowledge them. I really appreciate you all signing in. Let me get back to my friends. I'm out on the other side of the state. Paul has mentioned getting rid of the VA and providing a lot of logic to that. We need to pursue that kind of an idea. I'm not sure I can. I'm sorry, my hesitation is my picture is still jumping around. Arms keep flying up. I hope you all are seeing that. I'm not sure I can agree immediately because I thought about it with doing away with the VA. But reducing the VA to manageable facilities that would have a higher level of standard is absolutely doable. And the medical card for a veteran that is deserving of our care for him is akin to the idea that the president is using right now, that they can get approval to go off on the economy based on wait times and all that. I don't know that they have to have wait times or have to have wait times as a reason or even travel distances. So I like that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take time to write it down because that would certainly be an issue that I'd like to get involved in. Friends, last week I was asked what committees that I want to get on. I told you I want to get on the agricultural committee. I get on the budget committee if I can. And I've got that as a note, buddy. Thank you very much. I think it's a great starting point for considering how we negotiate the right answer for our vets. Yeah, Lindsay, I honestly don't know the answer to that. So she's asking me how we improve oversight on the various government agencies to deliver more transparency to the public. Um, I do not have a off-the-cuff answer for that. I do believe in transparency. I hope you can see that in the way that I answer questions. I will deliver that to you from my office when you get there. But delivering transparency on the other government agencies, I don't know the answer to that, but we'll be working hard at it. I think it's important, and it goes along with the idea that, thank you, it goes along with the idea that uh, that government works for us, works for we the people. I saw your note, buddy. I'm gonna have to get to that later. Okay. Well, hour and 15 minutes already, and my daughter just beat me up for moving my feet and making noise, so I got to stop it. Now she's mad at I mentioned her. That's okay. I'm always in trouble with her. Yeah. Bill, you got a good point. Let me go back to my cards here. Yeah, hey Nicholas, I've got more to get educated on that topic, but I guess my starting point tonight would be, why do we have a federal level child support system? Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that thought, and I need my teammates. I called in fire with you once, called in for close air support. I call in for close air support again. We have got to do a lot of talking, and every one of us needs to talk exponentially to people about getting a vote and considering how they see a particular election and getting an actual conservative, a true conservative, who will execute what he tells you. He's our representative going into the general and then into the seat for the next Congress. Hey, Mark, I'd be glad, Buzz, I should say, I'll be glad to talk to you about it at another time. If you don't have my now, shoot me a note. I think we still got each other's phone numbers. Hey, Paul, so I got asked a question about how we deal with fake news. It's a great question. The falsehood that our president has attacked the media or journalists as being the enemy of the people, that's just fake. That is an absolute lie. What he has said is fake news is the enemy of people, and that's absolutely true. When perpetuate things that aren't true or purposefully leave out information that is accurate in order to perpetuate their own personal opinion of something, that's fake news. However, how you deal with it, back to your earlier point about we people being engaged in the elections and being engaged in the politics of the day, because we, the people, also need to be engaged in listening to which news outlets we choose to listen to. And the first answer is consuming those that deliver fake news. Not a perfect answer, because some of them are propped up by very rich people, but that's the starting point. And the First Amendment is very clear that Congress will pass no laws. That, to me, speaks volumes to the next statement. The consequence for your speech, the consequences for anything that you do relative to the First Amendment, comes from your peers. It comes from your fellow Americans. We did. That's good. Really appreciate you being on. It's been very help, Paul. Thank you very much. What? I'm in trouble again. I don't know what I did, but I'm in trouble again. I don't know how many questions I missed, guys, but boy, this has been an eventful evening. We've talked all kinds of stuff. I'm sure we'll repeat some of them on Friday night. Another opportunity for me to remind you that as long as I can't walk the streets and knock on your doors because our governor has unnecessary rules out there still, this is the method that I'm going to primarily use to get your attention, to get you to cause other folks to pay attention and talk to each other about the election cycle coming up. Can't emphasize it enough. If you're willing to help, private message me, and either maybe my wife or my good friend will link up, pass off cards to you. What we need is enough folks that are willing to hand out, about 30,000 hand cards right now that we would have otherwise put on doors, and we need to do it in every. Yeah. Well, I think you're going to be a good source of information, brother. All right. I think we're slowing a little bit. We're at an hour and 21. I think is awesome. And so I'm going to assume that here shutting down the next 7 or 8 minutes is a smart tonight. David, we had already had an opportunity to talk about national concealed carry. Absolutely agree with national concealed carry. I think the first step is, the first step should be that our Constitution should allow us to carry nationally, but under our current conditions and knowing the rule where they are already in existence, rather than fighting those first, I think the first answer is getting reciprocity between the states. If you have a concealed carry permit in your state, you should be able to carry it in any state. And the second answer might be a national level concealed carry permit to solve that problem. So we can look at those, but the bottom line is you'll be able to carry your arm, your right to bear arm ought to be valid no matter where you are in this country, with respect to private property. If somebody with property so you can't carry the weapon on their property, then you need to respect that. Not the government, the private property owner. Thank you, Paul. And so, got another question in there, and we're wrapping it up a little bit. So I remind all of you, please take a look at my website, schaeferforcongress.com, SCHAFERFOR, Congress.com. Of course, you guys are all on Facebook. If you have Twitter friends, encourage them to come to Facebook or talk to me on Twitter. My phone number, once again, is 515-850-8400. You are welcome to call me or text me with guidance. On the website, there's an email attached to the website. You can give me guidance, ask questions there. And I look forward to talking to each and every one of you. Our district consists of 16 counties here, southwest corner, starting from Polk and going down to Vermont. If you're not sure, ask me and I'll send you. I sent out a picture of it. But if you know folks in other counties from live in, please talk to them. I am willing to come to any county for the next 30 days, 31, whatever the math is, to June 1st, and talk to any number of people. Staying within the governor's rules, if that's way that your friends and family feel about it in your county. But if you want to invite me to come spend a little time in your area talking in person, please reach out to me via text, reach out to me via direct message, and I will come to you and would be happy to do so to earn your support. Please allow me one more time to emphasize this primary season we're in is extraordinarily important to all of us. It should be important to all of us as Americans. Our parties have failed us in previous years with their get out the vote effort only being associated with the general election. It should, in the word of Paul earlier, by our party should be get out the vote in the primary to get everybody involved in the political process and understanding, where we need to go as a nation. So look at the candidates. There's only two for this primary in District 3. I do not expect to see a debate. I challenge my opponent. I challenge my Republican challenger for the Republican nomination to it. Here, I've challenged him via radio. He's heard that via his Facebook page from a couple of teammates, and we're happy to do so to the benefit of the people in the district. But with or without that, look at the information available on the candidate, encourage people to ask questions, and in the end, make sure that we, the people of Iowa District 3, choose our candidate between now and 2nd of June as this primary season comes to an end, and we move forward to make sure we get representation. Thank you all very much. I am going to sign out now, and I hope to see all of you on Friday night. We are going to go at 6:30 again on Friday night, and we look forward to all of you once again. Thank you, and good night. God bless you all, and God bless America.